Addiction, it's a broad word. It can mean a lot of things. It can be anything from a substance to a process to habits to attachment to certain things. But today I want to talk about three forms of addiction I think that all of us have to some degree, that if we can learn a way to manage them, to maybe ditch them altogether, we give ourselves the best opportunity to really move forward in life without the impediments that these things can bring along. So here we go. Number one is the addiction to being right. Like, I know because I know, therefore it is. And that's a trap for us, because if we only think and reaffirm of the things that we know, if we just convince ourselves and solidify those beliefs that we have, we close ourselves off to the opportunity to learn. And there's certain things that we can be addicted to being right about, like the sun is out right now. We can all agree on that, things such as that. But there's other things, like opinions that we might have of people, judgments, things like that. Now, we all have judgments, and they're valid to some degree, because you have to be able to gauge others, whether or not you want to be around them based on what they've done, the way they act, their things like that. And sometimes it's just not conducive to be around that person, and it might be best to establish some distance, make some boundaries between you and them, or just leave them altogether. But in that, there's always the opportunity, as I talk about in other forms of these 3 steps type of videos that I do, there's always an opportunity for us to learn, what is it about that person that bothers us? There's some that say in the enlightened community that when we see something we don't like, we're seeing a reflection of a part of us that we're confronted with, and we just simply don't want to see that. Now, that's not the case in every situation. If you see a person on the news that has just killed somebody in cold blood or something like that, you can judge that person and say, wow, I wouldn't want to be around that person, and that might be for safety or any number of reasons. That doesn't mean that you're seeing a killer in that person. But even in that instance, we don't know their story. We don't know the whole details. We only get what the media tells us. Sure, there's no easy explanation for ever killing somebody, and that's the ultimate wrong that we can probably do. But at the same time, we have to look at it and say, well, what is it about this that bothers me? And that goes for anything at all. The addiction to being right in an argument, or something. That's the difference between having a conversation with somebody and a debate. If you're debating all the time, then you're sort of stuck in your corner. You're like a boxer. You keep coming out as the bell rings and fighting and fighting and fighting and going back into the corner. You're never thinking of the other person's desire to win. You're not thinking of things like that. You're only thinking of you. You got to prove yourself. You've got to get through this. You're addicted to being right in that regard. And that little example, again, has other things that we can take from it. Because in that, we're building courage, we're getting back up, we're going back into the ring. But at the same time, we don't need to always be in a debate type of environment when we're engaging with people. Even if they don't have the same, say, political views as us, it might be best to think, well, why would that person think that? Or like I said in the earlier video about 3 things to do to change your reality, when I was talking about the random opinions of others, there's a certain amount of value in those opinions too. If they just see you walking down the street and they say, oh, look at that person, they're fat, you're overweight. Well, maybe you are. You're probably well aware of that. Whether or not that bothers you is on you. Your own self-image is your own reality, and you can take it as you want. But there are truths in that maybe you should look at. How is this affecting your overall health? How is this affecting maybe your spending habits? Any number of things. So in all these things where you're addicted to being right about, oh, I'm just going to live the way I want to live, we still have to have an opportunity there, allow ourselves the grace to step back and say, what can I take from this? Or what if I'm not right? Can we challenge ourselves? Can we be that open with ourselves? Or do we just remain the boxer in the corner and come out swinging over and over again? So that's the first one, the addiction to being right. Now the second one is our addiction to our story. Everywhere we go, we bring our story with us. Who I am, where I came from, all the things I've done, the memories I have that make me say I am. But a lot of those things are labels and attachments to titles or whatever, how to phrase it, that others have given us. There's a book, The Untethered Soul, by, I believe his name is Michael Singer. Great book. I highly recommend it. And in there, he talks a lot about that. The whole, the way that he phrases it, to summarize, is that, he says, well, if I ask a woman who they are, who she is, and she says, well, I'm Mrs. Elizabeth Anderson, because her husband's name is Anderson. Well, before she was Elizabeth Anderson, she wasn't married, she had another name. Does that mean that if she ceases to be Elizabeth Anderson, that who she is now in this instant vanishes? No. So she's truly not Elizabeth Anderson. Or if you say, like myself, if I say, oh, I'm a military veteran, I'm a soldier. Well, I was a soldier. I'm not a soldier now. I'll be a veteran forever. There's really nothing I can do to get rid of that. But the mindset attached to it, because I'm a veteran, this means I should be able to, or I am owed something, or people should, say things like thank you for your service and all these other things. And those are great things to say to veterans and people like that, or no matter what they are, first responders, or even the doctor, the nurse, the veterinarian, the person that's your wait staff. You can be grateful for them in that title role and give thanks to them. But at the same time, that's not who they are. So that really wraps up, or that sort of not wraps up. It sort of gets to the core of what I'm saying about our story. I like with myself. I'll use myself as an example again. I can say, "Oh, I'm a cancer survivor. I'm a transplant survivor. Any number of things. I've had divorces, and I'm a father. Okay, well, father is going to always remain. What I choose to do with being a father is on me. How well of a father I am to myself and my kids, but I'm not particularly interested in how others view my fatherness, and I'm not really particularly concerned about how other people view my any of the other things that I said. But at the same time, if I go through life constantly reminding myself that I'm a cancer survivor and that I'm a transplant survivor, those are just more things that I'm dragging along with me. Think of it, I once looked at it like, imagine you're driving an 18-wheeler, a big truck, and you're pulling behind you in the cargo, all the things that you are. And so the stuff that's in the cab with you are all the things that you need right now to make you who you are. For instance, I'm a digital nomad traveling and all this stuff, so there's a certain amount of things that I need to have in my consciousness all the time. Visa requirements, countries opening, coronavirus, things like that I need to be aware of. But behind that, if I have cancer survivor, transplant survivor, divorces I went through, things like that, the way that my military career might have went, or any number of things, those are additional additional trailers attached to this thing that I'm pulling along. So how fast can I progress if I'm dragging all this stuff along with me? And the same goes for things in our story that give us this whole sort of quasi-victim mentality. When we say, oh, well, if that hadn't happened to me, then I would be able to. That's classic victim. If something did something to me, therefore I'm unable to do something. That's your saboteur coming out inside. That's all kinds of victim. You need to ditch all of those things. I liken that more to like trying to walk, and you have chains behind you, and each one of them has a bowling ball on it. And every one of those are these things that we're holding on to. That guy did this to me, that woman did that to me, the fire burned down my house, whatever. It might have been 20 years ago, but we're still pissed off about that. So how fast can you go down your trail, your path, your life's path, if you're dragging these bowling balls behind you on chains? And so to wrap up the third one, I think the third one is looking at the other way. We hear a lot about attachment to outcome, and I think a lot of people are sort of addicted to the outcome. Like, I'm going to go to college, and I'm going to get this job, and that's the way it's going to be. And so they go through college, they do all their things, and they get out in the work world, and then maybe it doesn't pan out the way that they are. So what they've done is set themselves up for a certain amount of remorse or grief internally, whether they acknowledge it or not. Maybe they're fortunate and they find something else that lights them up and they sort of forget about that. They leave it behind. But what they've done is they've let go of that attachment, and they've let go of the expectation of of what's going to be in the future. They're not addicted to that anymore in that way. So to wrap the whole thing up, I think that the three things that can really help us to move forward in life in the form of addiction that I'm talking about it now are an addiction to being right, which I think is the number one addiction, and the addiction to the past and the memories of who I am in a way that don't serve us well. And then the attachment and addiction to the future, that things are going to turn out this way because that's just what's going to happen. Now, certainly on that last one, I want to say that it's not about not having goals. You have to have goals. You have to have a direction you're going. And trial and error along the way is the way you're going to get there. You're going to stumble, you're going to fall, but do you have the courage to get up and keep going? Can you look at what went wrong and find something in it, any little morsel that you can build on and learn from that'll help you continue down that road and let go of the attachment of even this, quote, failure? You know, there's a difference between mistakes and errors, you know, and things like that. If you make an error along the way or a mistake, you know, those are one thing, but I think mistakes, that has a different kind of connotation to it, because that sort of has a setback value to it. An error is just something that you need to refigure out, you know. And granted, you can probably Google the dictionary.com version of those things, and maybe they're identical, or maybe they mean something more specific, but you know what I'm saying. There's a difference between trial and error and growing from it, and trial and error and then using that and say, man, I made a mistake. I can't do this anymore because of. And 9 out of 10 times that because of is because of something else, like the universe conspiring against you or something like that. So there we go. 3 things to ditch: attachment to being right, addiction to being right, addiction to your story, and addiction to the expectations of the future. If you like content like that, like this, be sure to mash the like button down there and subscribe. Join my mailing list. It'll be linked below. I've got a number of events coming up here in the area of Mexico that I'm at. Currently there's one in Playa del Carmen, and also here in Cozumel where I'm sitting right now, and there's more in the works, and some of these will be online, and then I'm going to also have online only events that I'm going to be doing. Both myself and with my fiance Juliana Taveras are teaming up on a number of events coming up. There's a podcast in the works, and so if you want to be up to speed on all these kind of things, you like this kind of content, and you want to stay in touch, just sign up for my email list. I won't share it with people, just between us. It'll be once, maybe twice a month, or if something exciting comes up out of the blue, I'll be sure to let you know. That's all I got. Until next time, be yourself.